One of the things I enjoy is watching millionaires, billionaires, and leaders in patriarchal societies failing and flailing over the fallen birth rates. So, this article from Axios says why the conservative push to increase birth rate looks doomed. This is a nice thumbnail. American women are having fewer babies, and that's become a political issue for many conservative advocates and lawmakers. Elon Musk called the fallen birth rates the biggest danger civilization faces. Elon Musk makes sure everyone sees his tweets on the algorithm. One of his tweets from a couple of days ago: birth rates continue to plummet, population collapse is a certainty. While he sits on a pile of money like Scrooge McDuck, he and other billionaires make sure that there is food insecurity, and we're going to continue to see the birth rate plummet because nobody has any money. Anyways, why it matters. Barring an increase in immigration, the low birth rate threatens future economic growth, but there's little evidence that politics or public policy could meaningfully reverse the trend. Fewer babies means fewer future workers for people like Elon Musk. And that translates into problems like labor shortages, less innovation, and productivity. More urgently, as the population ages, who's going to take care of all them old folks? The bigger picture: this is a global phenomenon. In most wealthy countries, birth rates are below replacement, or 2.1 births per woman, the level needed to maintain population size. So, I will highlight right here that this is the only thing that they are wrangling their hands over. They know that it is expensive. If we can open up any social media platform, any news article, we see that there is a crunch for money, that the cost of living is not keeping up with wages. It is exponentially more expensive, and wages are flat or going down when we factor in inflation. Where's this money that people are supposed to have these kids with? And for the longest time, Republicans have told us, conservatives have told us, do not have babies that you cannot afford. And women and teens, thankfully, said, I bet. And they are not having kids right now because they cannot afford them. So now, what are they going to do? They're not going to be able to have all of these people that are going to be part of the working poor, the working class, to be able to do all of the things that these millionaires and billionaires need to be done. By 2050, three-quarters of countries will be below that level of 2.1 births per woman. Studies have found small gains in birth rates in European countries that put in place child care supports and paid parental leave, something in America that will not happen because they do not want to give any kind of leave to parents. They don't want to put any kind of child care stipends or subsidies in place. Absolutely not. All right, funding for IVF, something that presidential candidate Donald Trump proposed, can help more older women have children. He said some kind of way it is going to be free to do IVF. It is going to be free. I don't know how he's going to work that out, considering Republicans, Christians or conservatives are really against IVF. I don't think that he has talked to any Republicans on it. But none of these moves have made a big dent. They really don't do very much, said Philip Levine, an economics professor at Wesleyan College who studies fertility rates. Some Republicans are starting to propose policies to explicitly encourage more kids, as the Wall Street Journal reported recently. That's new territory in the U.S., says Philip Cohen, a sociologist at the University of Maryland who looks at demographic trends. Most European countries and about 40% of Asian countries have explicit policies meant to encourage babies. The U.S. typically has been more focused on individual choice and freedom. J.D. Vance has suggested that the cost of childbirth should be paid for by the government. Trump has mentioned baby bonuses. These kind of pro-natalist policies, research shows, also haven't made much of an impact in other countries. Some of the answers of J.D. Vance and Trump on child care and all this kind of stuff have been a mumble mess. And I have no idea what they're even talking about. They really don't give a clear, concise answer as to how they would even pull any of these answers off. No one's going to have a kid because they get an extra $2,000 a year, says Levine, between the lines. Though child care support, subsidies for parents, or universal policies, as in France, has been shown to help a bit. to increase birth rates. Both Trump and Vance recently fumbled answers to questions on how they'd make childcare more affordable. Asked what he'd specifically do to address the issue at a conference in New York last week, Trump said raising tariffs would do the trick. As much as childcare is talked about as being expensive, is relatively speaking not very expensive to the kind of numbers will be taken, because he thinks that tariffs are taxes versus just making sure that the rich folks are actually paying their fair share of taxes. He thinks that he's just going to tariff other countries, and that's how they're going to pay for childcare.
Can you commit to prioritizing legislation to make childcare affordable?
Well, I would do that, and we're sitting down. You know, I was we had Senator Marco Rubio, and my daughter Ivanka was so impactful on that issue. It's a very important issue. But I think when you talk about the kind of numbers that I'm talking about, that because look, childcare is childcare. There's something, you have to have it. In this country, you have to have it.
He didn't utter a single coherent sentence. Many of the things he said, there weren't even verbs in his sentences. It was Marco Rubio, my daughter Ivanka, childcare is childcare.
Right.
And the fact that we're not covering that, like, let's be clear, day in and day out, we're saying, I need to see every single one of Kamala Harris's policies, and I want to see every punctuation, and I want to see it listed in 15-point font. There's an absolute double standard in the way these two individuals are being covered. If under that word salad there was policy, bring it on. Let's talk about it. I would love to do so, but there isn't a policy to discuss.
Asked a similar question at the conference just days before, Vance gave a similar non-answer. As the New York Times noted, he said families could do it. Maybe like a grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more. So, old folks are still having to work these days. They really are. So I don't know how that's going to work out, but it just lets you know that they are not in tune with what is going on in the United States.
What can we do about lowering the cost of daycare? Hayden, obviously a working family, and it's very hard for working families to get by. How will we lower the cost of daycare?
Such an important question, Charlie. And I think one of the things that we can do is make it easier for family models to choose, or for families to choose whatever model they want, right? So one of the ways that you might be able to relieve a little bit of pressure on people who are paying so much for daycare is make it so that maybe like grandma or grandpa wants to help out a little bit more, or maybe there's an aunt or uncle that wants to help out a little bit more. If that happens, you relieve some of the pressure on all the resources that we're spending in daycare. Now, you talk about just daycare. Let's say you don't have somebody who can provide that extra set of hands. What we've got to do is actually empower people to get trained in the skills that they need for the 21st century. We've got a lot of people who love kids, who would love to take care of kids, but they can't, either because they don't have access to the education that they need, or maybe more importantly, because the state government says you're not allowed to take care of children unless you have some ridiculous certification that has nothing to do with taking care of kids. So empower people to get the skills they need. Don't force every early child care specialist to go and get a 6-year college degree where they've got a whole lot of debt and Americans are much poorer because they're paying out the wazoo for daycare. Empower working families, empower people who want to do these things for a living, and that's what we got to do.
All right.
Also seem to blame regulations for the lack of childcare workers. We got a lot of people who love kids, who would love to take care of kids, but they can't, either because they don't have access to the education that they need, or maybe more importantly, because state government says you're not allowed to take care of children unless you have some ridiculous certification that has nothing to do with taking care of kids. He said childcare workers need a 6-year college degree, which is not true. In most ways, the decline in birth rate is a good news story, a result of improvements in healthcare, science, and education, and equality. Babies are more likely to survive than in the past, and investments in education pay off into adulthood. That means parents have fewer children and spend more resources on them, says Charles Kinney, a senior fellow at the Center for Global Development. That's not a trend that's expected to reverse, nor will we want it to, Kinney says. Perhaps the most meaningful decline in the fertility rate in wealthy countries is because younger, Poorer women are delaying childbirth and wind up having fewer children. More than half of the drop in America's total fertility rate since 1990 is caused by a collapse in births among women under 19, meaning teens. And teens are usually girls, not women. The Economist noted last year the advancement in women's equality ranked among the greatest public policy triumphs in the post war era. Just a reminder, U.S. birth rates select ages. This is young women, ages 20 to 24. It is dropping, which is good. That means that girls are going to college before they are having babies. Then we got the teenagers, 15 to 19. You see how that's plummeting? That is a good thing because typically teens do not have any money. And you see the older ladies that could probably afford it, you see how that number is going up? That's a good thing. You know why? Because they probably have some jobs. Didn't these people tell us not to have babies that they can't afford? So they should be celebrating that women and girls are not having babies if they can't afford them. Now, maybe we should create some policies that are more family friendly, that address the cost, that address childcare, that address maternity and paternity leave, that address that women are typically the caregivers and try to bring the men along to do their participation in the household. So, are we going to address those things? Conservative people, people that want more children, Scrooge McDuck sitting over here, sitting on top of a pile of money, and a lot of other people are trying to figure out, are they going to pay for rent? Are they going to pay for medicine? Please make it make sense, people. Join the conversation. Let me know what you think about this. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. So I just came across this article from Market Watch. Now, if you read the title, you would think something negative happened, but it didn't. It says women just broke a job market record. That may be a warning sign. This part right here, that may be a warning sign, is just kind of weird because I'm like, what could the warning sign be? It says Friday's jobs report showed a cooling labor market, but hiding in the data was one record breaking stat about women in the workforce. The percentage of women in the workforce has reached its highest level on record. That sounds great to me. That's according to the August employment report released Friday by the Labor Department, which showed sustained increase in women's labor force participation. The top line data offered evidence of a labor market that has continued to cool as few industries added jobs. But for women in their prime working years, the labor force participation rate was at an all time high. The labor force participation rate for working age women, which has climbed for decades, has reached its highest level on record. So here's the labor force participation rate for women ages 25 to 54. So right here, we see the pandemic drop where mostly women had to drop out of the workforce because we are typically the main caretakers, but then it went right on back up. So, and they're saying that this is the highest percentage of women in the workforce. So, why is this even negative? Like, why is that a warning and why was that even in the title? Millions of women dropped out of the labor force after the pandemic took hold in 2020, according to the Labor Department estimates. Working women were more likely to be employed in service sectors that were shut down by social distancing rules, and many women were burdened with additional responsibilities at home as children attended school online. But as the job market heated up, the percentage of women in the workforce started climbing again, and now 78.4% of U.S. women ages 25 to 54 are working, the highest figure ever recorded. I think that the story of women's labor force participation rate after the pandemic is the story of what a really strong job market does for workers, said Kitty Richards, a senior strategic advisor at Groundwork Collaborative, a left-leaning think tank. It brings people off the sidelines. The labor force participation rate measures the percentage of the working age population that is working or actively looking for work. It's hard to tell for sure whether a higher share of women in the workforce is a good or a bad sign, explained Jeremy Horbadal, an economist and director of the Arkansas Center for Research in Economics. It could mean that better job opportunities and higher wages are pulling more workers into the market, or that more households feel stretched thin and need the extra cash. His sense is that it's the former. Wages are now going up so quickly, especially the past year and a half, that some women who might have said, well, maybe I will stay home, they look at what they can earn in the job market, he said. Julie Cashin, the director for Women's Economic Justice at the Century Foundation, a progressive think tank, thinks the data point means more American families are feeling financially strained. The cost of living is high and they have to pay the bills. It's a combination of wanting to work and having to work. Friday's job reports show that though the U.S. economy added jobs in August, the labor market has continued to cool. Some are worried it has slowed down a little too much and that the Federal Reserve officials have moved too slowly to cut interest rates in order to avoid a sharp rise in unemployment. The percentage of Americans who are out of work and actively seeking a job ticked down to 4.2% from 4.3% in the previous month. If there is a future surge in unemployment, Richard said, women workers could bear the brunt of it. I worry that the Federal Reserve is already behind the curve. I don't want to lose sight of the fact that the labor market is softening and that the dynamic can spiral very quickly, she said. That harms women and other workers who are on the margin of the labor market first. Regardless, women are working. And obviously, we're working because we need to work. Regardless of anything, women are going to be impacted if the unemployment rate continues to climb or whatnot, or if people get laid off. But for right now, I'm just not seeing this as a terrible sign. But also, I'm not an economist and I'm also not writing articles that are made to make people click into it. So, you guys let me know what you think about this. Let me know, do you feel this is a warning, something dire could happen? Or is this something that should be celebrated like, yay, women are working and we're doing what we need to do to survive in this economy? Let me know. Join the conversation. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. This is another despicable story coming out of India. So, an ambulance driver and helper molest a woman, remove her husband from life support, and he later dies. A woman was allegedly SA'd by the driver and helper of a private ambulance she hired to transport her terminally ill husband home, police said on Wednesday. The accused also disconnected the oxygen support of her husband, who later died, they said. The woman's husband was undergoing treatment at a private hospital in Lucknow. Due to financial constraints, she decided to take his discharge and take him home in a private ambulance on the evening of August 29th, when, while returning, the driver and the helper allegedly harassed the woman, police said. According to her complaint, when she resisted their attempts, the driver stopped the ambulance in Basti district, approximately 150 kilometers from their destination, and forced her brother, and her husband out of the vehicle. The woman contacted the local police, who arranged for another ambulance to transport her husband to Gorakhpur Medical College, where he was pronounced dead upon arrival. The woman returned to Lucknow and filed a police report at the police station against the driver on Wednesday. We have lodged a case regarding the incident on the basis of the complaint registered by the woman. Our teams are trying to arrest the accused. What is going on with grape culture in India? These people are going to have to really start taking this seriously. But how do you change the hearts and minds of these men who believe that that they are entitled to any woman simply because that woman is a breathing human nearby? Now I'm moving on to this article. There's no grape in this one, but it does get a WTF. The headline, she starved so that I could get my diet. Armyman Hokato Sema dedicates Paralympics bronze medal to wife. Hokato Sema from India's Nagaland scripted history in the Paralympics 2024 by winning a bronze medal in the men's shot put F57 class. The 40-year-old secured this feat at his debut with a personal best of 14.65 meters on his fourth attempt. Sema is an Army man, but his career in sports started in the year 2026 when he started taking shot put seriously. This medal means a lot to me, Sema says. I'm representing India in the Indian Army because I served the Army back home. I am filled with joy as I have done it for them and also for Nagaland, where I'm from. I wanted to make all of them proud. The Dimapur-born story of coming back from rock bottom to accomplish this Olympic dream is a story worth telling 100 times. How he recovered himself from a fatal incident and how his wife became his pillar of strength in the most testing times is Sema's story of resilience, perseverance, and skill. Hokato Sema is an Indian Army junior commissioned officer from Nagaland. He was born in Nuiland district and is employed as a havildar in the Army with the 9 Assam Regiment. In 2002, Sema lost his leg in a landmine blast during an operation at the Line of Control in Jammu and Kashmir. After surviving the fatal accident, he started playing the shot put at the age of 32. He trained under his coach, Rakesh Rawat. Sema's wife became his strength during the tough times and sacrificed even her food so that her husband could have enough money for training. She has sacrificed a lot for me, he explained. She has often starved so that I could eat and continue training because we didn't have enough money to ensure 2 square meals a day. My face is so chopped and screwed at this idea. She has been my biggest pillar of support. She's picked me up every time I felt like giving up. Without her, I would not have been on the podium today. So, and he becomes the first medalist from his state of Nagaland. All right, so he gets to eat. Maybe she gets to eat now that the Olympics is over. Maybe they don't have to sacrifice so much, and maybe she can actually, have some nutrients of her own. I don't know. This just doesn't sit right with me, and I know people are like, probably, yay, But how many times do women do this type of thing where they have to dim themselves or give of themselves so that other people can win? Y'all weigh in on these two. Let me know what you think. Don't forget to like, comment, and share.